for the people. Oh, we are?
Yep.
Oh.
Hey, Facebook Live. Hey, Talk Universe. We are live. It is prime time. It is 6:30 New York time. We have Leta, we have Celina, and we have Shikha, and we are ready to dive in here because we've got some amazing interviews for you. So everybody wave. And I am going to, Shikha is still working on her video here. She's manifesting right now as a green rectangle. That's going to be fixed. And thanks all of you for being so timely. This is awesome. Leta, congratulations for persevering. I know we had a couple of little mix-ups with the emails and stuff. So here we are.
Yeah, well, I'm thrilled that I could be your guinea pig there. That with that one little glitch, your perfect system was. So,
well, there were many other glitches. I just finally, you were so persistent that I was like, okay, I've got to go and think through the system, and it works now, which is really great.
That if I was going to get an email, I should have an email. So where is it?
Yeah, well, that's the other piece right there. Okay, so. All right, we've got LetaGreene.com is the website. And let's see here. I'm going to practice your bio before we actually go on the recording. Leta Greene is a speaker, including 2 TEDx talks and the author of 2 books. Her programs range from maturation programs to confidence workshops for women, and as an energetic keynote speaker for conference and seminars on resiliency. And the talk is called Beyond Victimhood. And looking forward to this. I'm going to modify the bio on the fly, just put the proper syntaxes on and everything else. Are you ready to rock?
I am.
All right. We are live in 3, 2. We are live with Leta Greene. Leta, are you ready to talk?
I am. I was pretty much born ready to talk.
Leta Greene is a speaker of 2 TEDx talks, as well as the author of 2 books. Leta's programs range from maturation programs to confidence workshops for women, and as an energetic keynote speaker for conference and seminars on resiliency. Leta Greene, welcome to the talk.
That's awesome. I like that I just got a new nickname. That makes me sound cooler, more.
Yeah, how about it? Well, I'm going to stumble and stammer all over the place here, Leta, if you let me. Your talk is called Beyond Victimhood. It's a powerful talk that I can relate to. You were on a journey yourself, a humanitarian mission in a developing country, as I have been in the past, and it just really hit home for me when you talked about riding up in a in a nice Western automobile or auto rickshaw or wherever you were in, and you pulled up and you see a small child and a couple of children kind of begging on the side of the road, and your kind of Western privilege kicked in, and you thought to yourself what I thought to myself and every other Westerner that catches themselves or doesn't catch themselves, and we think, where is their mother? And then we realize, is there a mother? And then it hits us, the reality of what's going on in the world and the role that we can play if we will step up to the plate. And there's a number of other very serious topics in your talk. It was very transparent, very vulnerable. Leta, please take us behind the talk.
Well, the funny thing about it is I am a very happy, vivacious kind of person. And so people who've seen that talk and then go see my other TEDx talk are like, is this the same person? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we all have our layers of who we are. And this was about as vulnerable as we can get, coming out to the world saying about sexual abuse. This has happened. It's happening. This is not just in foreign countries. This is in our nice neighborhoods. This is happening. And that had happened to me. And the reason it was vulnerable, the do talk about it. And I'm saying that we can be happy. And if it's, divorce or, tragedy or the death of a child or all these different things, we are often given like the victim card. You get to be a victim now. And I'm saying, you know what? I was a victim. Then I survived it. And now I get to advocate for a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, what else do you tell people when they are kind of in disbelief with their jaw dropped? What do you do to just kind of stay on the same page?
well, I just hadn't really talked about it. With the Me Too movement, I realized I just assumed that everybody was like where I was. You know the statistics of 1 in 3 women, 1 in 5 boys, but you look around and it seems like most people are doing pretty well. And so I just assumed that this wasn't a topic of conversation that was confusing to people. I just assumed that we all knew that you go through your cycle of grief, you do the self-work, and then you're in recovery, and then in time, you get to go on with your happy life. Not to minimize at all what happens, but you get to go on. And then I realized that people were starting to want to use this as a reason to be just mad and angry and totally justified. However, we need to give a new destination to the children that I was given, that you can be successful, you can be happy, resiliency is overcoming difficulty. Yeah. And we're all going to have difficulty. One of my hard things was that I was sexually molested for over 12 years. But I'm not now, and I can marry well and have a wonderful, fulfilling sexual life with my partner, and I don't have to be damaged by what happened. And I want to give that message to people. And all those years of all my happy talks with true principles, now I'm saying, yeah, even with this, these principles still apply.
I love with sensitivity. I love the way, kind of the resilient way, that there's a kind of a matter of factness in which you lay this out. Yeah, the bad stuff happens. We don't have to stay there. We can do the hard self work. We can give ourselves time. And yes, we can live happy lives. I think it's a really awesome, hopeful message, as long as we're sensitive to people that are still in that process of deciding what do we do now that the crud has hit the fan, and it's not easy, and it's not happy, and it's painful, and everything else. And there are so many of us in that decision making process, and some of us just don't know that we can be empowered. We can choose our response. Others of us, maybe we do know that, but we're just angry, and we're working through that emotion. So
yeah. Just like you tell a kid, your feelings are all okay. And we need to give our children the freedom to have all those different feelings and to learn how to deal with them. And when we're stripped to a certain part of our core, we are like a child again, that we have to work through those feelings. And what I'm hoping that comes out of me coming out and saying this is not only that new destination of giving hope, but that we can be kinder how we talk to victims. We can be kinder how we talk to those in survival phase. And that, number one, we can talk about it. Think of all the myriad of issues that we face in our society, suicide, mental illness, sexual abuse. The list goes on and on and on. If we just talk to people and start to see who they really are without our judgment and our labels, our lives are going to be personally more rich, and we're going to give people the freedom to be like going through what they need to go through to be vibrant, amazing, contributing people to society.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love you. Really have just this candid, matter of fact way to lay all of these things out. Leta, my question for you is, I mean, was there I think for all of us, that is a stage of the grief processing, is deciding what we're going to do with it, working through our anger, all of that. So if it's not too personal or uncomfortable for you, can you kind of take us back there to what you were dealing with, how long it took, and what was maybe the tipping point for you in realizing that you could choose to be empowered and help others?
Well, it's not too personal because I wrote a book about it. So you kind of have to be real. I can't be like, no, sorry, I don't want to. That's the hard.
It's all, whoop, there it is. It's already out, and there's a TED Talk out.
Right. So when I did that TEDx talk, the book was already in the works, and it was this, do I really want to say this to the whole entire world? So a lot of my vulnerability that I felt was because I know I would be saying it to people who could be, as I would say, poopy about it, right? Not just prior when I shared these things, it was with someone I felt safe with, or that I knew I could help by sharing this with. So going back, I was a 14-year-old girl when I was able to remove the abuser from my life. And I can still remember that moment of defiance. And I did something that only those who knew him would understand how serious this was, but I slammed his car door. And just that moment of walking away after doing this very naughty thing, and threatening him that I would tell, which I did not have the courage to tell for about a year. But, you know, walking away and just being like, and I can't describe it any other way than knowing that when we do not do what is true, there is an energy that is sucked from us. And some people call it God, when we have the energy that empowers us. And, you know, the energy that's sucked from us is, you know, Satan. I like to call him he who is poopy, because he wants everything to stink. And I'm also a mother. And it's funny. So there's he who is awesome and he who is poopy. But when we give power to evil, it sucks something from us. And that was my first time of stepping into, yes, it might have been scary because it was new ground for me, but I felt that, and I wanted more of it. I wanted more.
That was a place in your life that you can remember. I mean, vivid decades later. And that was your, and this is kind of a man analogy or action movie meme analogy, but that's when you basically toss the bomb. You tossed the bomb behind you and just started strolling, and the whole thing blew up behind you, and you just kept going.
Was like this. You know, it was like all amazing. Yeah, exactly. I knew where you were going. I knew something blew up, and if we were to go with that, it was his really nice car that talked.
Yeah.
83, 84, that was, you know, a pretty nice car, and I slammed the car door. But it did take me time to have the courage to tell people, because what people don't understand, especially when it's not, you know, just an attack off the street, which has this whole other dichotomies and difficulties. But when you are molested as a child or abused by someone that you know, which 90% of those who are abused, it's like between 80 and 90%, depending on where you look for the statistics, are molested or abused by someone they know. They don't just touch your body. They manipulate your mind. And he had done all the groundwork in me, that the reason I slammed his car door that day is I realized he was grooming. I realized who he was grooming. He was grooming the neighbor girls. And I didn't have enough courage to stand up for myself. But that kind of it was just this moment of me realizing something had to change. And that's what made me stand up for me, because I didn't have the concept of that I was worthy of protection. And
but you stepped up for someone else.
Yeah, I did. And I wish that I'd done that for myself, but I didn't. And if we can give kids a very clear understanding that nobody has the right to make them keep a secret, as I tell my children, any secret you're going to keep, it's going to come out. Like for a surprise birthday party or Christmas present, any good secret, it's going to come out. But if it's meant to stay a secret, it's bad. And you can take it as simple as like gossip. You know, don't say bad things about people, because it's going to come out. So don't say them if you don't want them to come out, right? You were going to say something.
Well, absolutely. Now I am hearing, unfortunately, a little echo bouncing back. So I don't know if you can lower your speakers on the laptop or anything like that. Now I'm not hearing it anymore, so that's good.
Better right there?
That's better. That's better. So I'm just, you know, this is the worst thing about doing these sensitive interviews. It's like, oh, we got sound issues or whatever. But that's why I have Lester, my ninja, edits all this stuff up, which is good. So
Perfect.
So turning point in your life, Leta, is when you really stood up as an advocate, not necessarily for yourself, but for other people. And that allowed you to stand up for yourself. Tell us just briefly before we pivot over to the Blitz round, tell us a little bit about the workshops that you do and how you have all of these amazing programs for other women.
Well, I started becoming a speaker in 2008, and I started speaking about you know, what I knew: confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, now, with coming out about sexual abuse, you can see the deeper issue of why I spoke on that. I've also been a makeup artist for 26 years now. So I've talked to a lot of women about image and how they perceive themselves. And with coming out with this, I really feel like it was all preparation to say, even those principles even apply now. I do maturation programs because kids should not be traumatized to be found out what it means to be a girl. And, I don't talk about this topic in them, but it's just really fun and I enjoy doing them, to the confidence workshops, where it's interesting that sexual predators and traffickers actually look for people who are not confident. They look for girls and young men that have, parent and compliment. So just by teaching people how to accept a compliment and not be seeking validation from outside sources, how much safer they will be, even if they don't realize you're applying it to this point. But I also add in, where it's appropriate, modules of how to be safe and things to look out for and how to keep toxic relationships at bay.
Well, we've been enjoying this talk with Leta Greene. Her talk is called Beyond Victimhood, and you can certainly hear how she has walked beyond. And we're going to pivot over to you now, Talk Universe, in the Blitz Round. And it's time for the Blitz Round with Leta Greene. I'm going to ask Leta a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent talk. Are you ready, Leta?
Yeah, I am.
First question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
What advice do you have for other people to be able to get accepted?
Apply lots and have a compelling topic. I've been fortunate. I've been accepted each time I've applied, but I think it's because my topic is timely and needed and a different twist on it.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
Naturally, I am a blender. For the TEDx, I'm a memorizer. You have very little time and it's really hard and lots of work.
Here's the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk to cut out?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a lot of the background story. You want to establish more of a connection with your audience by giving them background and just going right to the chase and the vulnerability of it. And here's my call to action for the world. Yeah.
Where's the line in your opinion? Because you had a very personal, very vulnerable story that's very sad if you're not careful about it. And there's a real line between the cathartic effect if you're the one speaking to 1,000 people or 500 people and maybe going on and on and on, which you did not do. But that could be cathartic if you are not super socially aware of the dynamics of the speaker-audience relationship. And if you're in the audience, we've all been in an audience where somebody said something sad and it just depressed the morale and they went on and on and on. So where was the line for you? How were you able to skillfully use this so that you got to the point, we felt what you felt, and then you turned it around before it became too heavy for the talk or for the audience?
First of all, I don't think we should ever be on a stage for ourselves. And that every principle we share needs to be for the audience. And so with my TEDx talk, I wrote it out and I edited and edited and edited to make sure it was just enough that you knew I knew what I was talking about. So I wasn't saying, oh, I'm way up here and what's wrong with you? That they could say, I'm in the trenches with you. And if it's not about being in the trenches with people and connecting and it's about you, it's wrong. So you got to take all that stuff out, and that's for your girlfriend. That is not for stage.
Well, we've been enjoying this.
If it's TEDx stage or any stage.
We've been enjoying this Blitz Round with Leta Greene. Her talk is called Beyond Victimhood. We're going to have a link in our show notes page to that talk so that you can click on it and watch it. And you can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com, as well as go to LetaGreene.com, green with an E on the end, LetaGreene.com. And check out what she's doing in terms of her keynotes and her workshops and all the empowering programs that she has put together. We're going to be right back with Leta Greene's final word of advice. And it's time for the final word of advice. What is it, Leta?
To realize that everybody has a story And if we talk to them, which I love your title of your podcast, Be the Talk, if we talk to others and make our journey through life about seeing other people and seeing what their experience is, not only can we learn and become better, but we can make them human. Remove the labels.
Leta Greene, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Awesome. It's so fun.
Excellent.
So do I stick around or do I?
Yeah, whatever you like. I mean, feel free to stick around. And our friend Tazim says hello. So hello, Tazim, and hello, everyone else who is out there. And if this is a little after the broadcast time and you're part of Leta's friends and fan club, you can wiggle your finger over the share button and share. And you can comment, and Leta's going to see all this because she's tagged. Same thing with Shikha's fan club and Celina's fan club. There's a lot of people between us, and that's part of the reason why we do these cool broadcasts. So help spread the impact of their talks. They're truly world-changing, ideas worth spreading. Now, we are going to bring Celina and Shikha back on. Shikha, we can see you now. That's awesome. And then Leta, you are, congratulations. Leta, you are our newest talk alumni. So you are now, this is my favorite part, where you give advice to Celina and Shikha about how to hold your own with the likes of me.
Oh, yeah. Nathan's super scary. Yeah.
I am. I'm pretty good.
Well, be yourself and you look great. So Celina, so that's nice. I know we ladies like to know we look good on camera.
Yeah.
We have good hair.
Well, Shikha, you're looking better. You've improved dramatically from when you were a green rectangle. you were a green iPhone shaped rectangle. So it's good to see you.
I moved on my phone, so it's easier to take around the house.
There you go.
Yeah.
The
phone app works better than the laptop.
Good to know. All right. Well, we will talk with you, Shikha, in just a moment. Going to escort you back to the green room. Leta, thank you so much. And we are going to have Celina here with us now. Celina, if we can frame your face a little bit, if you can pull your laptop or whatever you have towards you just a little bit so that you're sitting a little higher. And Celina, I think you might be frozen. I'm talking to someone who's frozen here. And this is why it's great to have 5 people on at a time, or 3, because if one person is frozen, Celina, this is your last chance, or else we're gonna move over to Shikha until we can unfreeze you. It's like Han Solo frozen in carbonite here. I'm gonna walk Celina back to the green room there. It looks like she's rebooting, so that's great. Shikha, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome. You ready for this?
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. And then we'll get right back with Celina. I see you back, Celina, which is great. So let's see here. Is passion a choice? Shikha Tandon is the only swimmer to represent India in the 2004 Olympics. She's won 37 international and numerous national medals. She's created 75 national records and received the award from the President of India for achievements. Was that Modi, or is that someone else?
No, that was way back, Abdul Kalam.
Well, way back in 2004. Yeah, that's a little bit of like I was interviewing somebody and he was talking about the 2020s. And I'm like, wow, it gets me so excited when we talk about the technology of the 2020. And then he's like, well, it's only a year away. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like the Conan O'Brien, the year 2000. I'm still living like decades ago. It's so strange.
I know we all had these plans that, in 2020 I'm going to be doing this, and little you realize it's just 1 year away.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So you've got your LinkedIn profile. Is passion a choice is the title of your talk. All right. Well, very cool. Any questions for me before we go live?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. We are live in 3, 2. We are live with Shikha Tandon. Shikha, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk. Let's go.
Shikha Tandon is the only swimmer to represent India in the 2004 Olympics. She has won 37 international swimming competitions and received an award from the President of India for her achievements. Combining passion for sport and bioscience, Shikha has carved a career in anti-doping science as well as fitness technology. She develops sports and education ecosystems in India. Shikha Tandon, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Nathan.
Your talk is called "Is Passion a Choice?" I love this because you tell the story. You've got great parents because you were whining apparently in your story. I guess kids all over the world, we all whine when we're little kids. So you didn't like the color of the ribbon of the bronze medal that you won. You didn't like, it wasn't the bronze medal, it was the color of the bronze medal ribbon. And what did your mother say? It's like my mama says the same kind of thing to me. If you want something better, you have to work harder. And I love it. Shikha Tandon, please take us behind the talk.
So my talk was about connecting the dots, and so I was invited to talk about my story as a swimmer and as going on to become an Olympian. And so behind the scenes was basically just running people through what that journey was like. My swimming career spanned about 15 years. And so right from the time, like you mentioned, me being this, little girl, 8 years old, extremely scared of the water, I wanted nothing to do with the water, and, how I eventually started swimming and how I got to enjoy that journey, and then eventually going on to becoming an Olympian. And the story that you mentioned was, I think, the turning point in my career, where it was my first national medal. I was all of 9 years old, and I'd won a bronze, and I touched the wall, and my mom was crying, and I was crying after the medal ceremony. And my mom looked at me and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, because I don't like the color of the ribbon on the bronze, because I think it was a yellow and I wanted the red or something." And she was crying. She had tears in her eyes. And I mean, hers were out of joy, because she was like, "Oh my God, my daughter's just won her first national medal. And there I am standing, I want the other ribbon." And so she, told me something in that moment, which was, just work as hard as you can if you really want that other ribbon. And I think that's something that just stuck with me throughout the 15 years and even beyond, even after I stopped competitive swimming. And that's something that I live by today. And I feel like when we talk about passion, I think there's people just assume that, when you go ahead and do something, you're going to enjoy it immediately. And that's what passion means. So everyone's just constantly looking around to see what is it that I enjoy in that moment. And if I don't enjoy it in that moment, then that's not my passion. And you tend to move on to something else. And especially in this day and age where, we've got so many things to catch our attention. So anything that glitters, we tend to look at it. And if that's not attractive enough, we move on to something else. So I think with passion and we being able to persevere through what I call an interest, and allowing that interest to grow on you, I think that eventually develops into passion over the years. And when you look back, that's when you can see, oh yeah, this was a passion, versus looking at it up front, saying, okay, I don't enjoy this. This is not a passion. I enjoy this. This is a passion. So the talk was really about going through my journey, my takeaways from that journey, and what that means into finding something that you eventually end up being passionate about.
There are two types of passion talks. Whenever I interview someone, whenever you go on TED Talks or TEDx Talks, and the one is it almost, if it's done well, it can be very inspiring. But if it's not done extremely well, it looks like a caricature, which is follow your heart and just, that kind of thing. And then there's the other side, which is really, kind of the stoic, work hard, overcome the obstacles, have a learning mindset, blood, sweat, tears. And, especially whether it's done with someone with a stellar track record of performance or not, it's a weightier talk. Certainly, whenever there's an Olympian telling us, work hard and press through your barriers, it's a powerful thing. So, Shikha, if you'll let me, I know you probably have only, almost always only answer Olympic type questions, but the rest of us have never been there. So if you'll let me ask you just a couple, then I'll get past, and I want to talk with you about how you got into anti-doping science and some of the really great work that you're doing right now. But would you grant me just a couple of Olympics questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about that.
All right. So 2004. All right. I've been to India, I think, a couple of times. I've been to three or four different cities in India. And I have family members from India. So a beautiful country, beautiful people. It is an intense experience. And, it's just a wonderful place. And you were the only Olympian in 2004. So, I mean, we love the opening ceremonies, and you see all the different countries. And this last time they had the Koreas coming together as one, and there's just all of this euphoria, it's global euphoria. You're the only one in India, and there's 1 billion people in India. Not everybody is wired to television, but you've got 1 billion people talking about you, knowing about you. What was that like on that level? And what was it like just you were the only person from your whole country? So was that kind of lonely? What were you feeling with that? That dynamic is just so unique. I just want to know what it was like for you.
Yeah, so I was the only swimmer that represented India in that games, but the whole Olympic team had about 70 odd athletes from various different sports. So
good. I read that wrong then. So I totally read it wrong. Yeah. Great. Okay.
So at the swimming arena, it was just myself. So, I mean, when you talk about swimming, you talk about the 1 week events that go on, and it's just me, and you see these other teams that have, multiple other athletes as part of that team. So as an experience at the Olympics, I think it was absolutely one of the best experiences that I've had. And I tell this to a lot of people that, you have 10,000 athletes from all over the world. Everyone's living together, eating together, training together, competing together. And, nobody's treating anyone any differently. You could be a multiple time world record holder. It could be your first experience at the games, and everyone's treated with the same amount of respect. And I think that's something so unique. And I think that's so needed, that if all of us, and sport, I think, has the power to do that. It has the power to bring us all together, no matter which country you're from. Everyone's there with the same aim to be the best that they can. And, and you also know that, everyone back home in your respective countries is watching you. And with that there is some amount of pressure. You do tend to feel nervous because just the size and the games itself brings that emotion in you. But at the same time, there's just so much excitement, because as an athlete, that's literally the pinnacle of your sport. And so that's something you've been dreaming about, potentially right from the time you started the sport. And it's finally there, and you're in that moment, and you're excited to embrace those experiences. But at the same time, you also know that you're there, to perform to the best of your ability. So it's a mix of excitement and a bit of nervousness. And I think the key is really to be able to manage both those emotions equally, and just to go out there and do the best that you can. And I think most importantly is just to have fun in a situation like that.
Were you able to be present and be able to enjoy and have fun, and yet be able to be serious-minded and train and do all the things you needed to do, but really sponge up as much as you could?
Yeah, I was definitely able to do that. I unfortunately fell sick a little bit for my event, so it didn't go. Yeah, it didn't go as well as I would want it to. But given the circumstances and given everything that was going on at the time, I think I did well, and I was happy with the experience. Definitely something that I look back to very, very fondly every time I think about it. And, every time I share my experiences with people, with younger athletes who are, coming up the ranks, or with just people who are, not really in tune with the Olympics. And when I share that experience, everyone comes away feeling like they were part of that journey. So I think that's an important message to share, just because the power of sports and what it can do for everyone as a community.
Shikha, you were talking a moment ago about just the level of performance and the level of collegiality and friendship. And there's just kind of this unspoken bond where all of you are competitors. You all respect each other. It's merit-based. Mm-hmm. You know that you earn the right to be there. And you all get along and everything. And I love this, the tie-in, because you're also a TEDx alumni. And so there are many people that are trying to get accepted, many people that really want to be a TED speaker, and not all of us have a performance background, either in sports or in, performing arts, which is kind of my background, or in some other, maybe public speaking. Not everybody is used to being on that kind of a platform, whether it's a sports or a stage platform. What's your advice to other people that are really, they have that idea we're spreading, they've been accepted, to give a talk. And how would you describe kind of the level of preparation that they will need to do? It's not Olympic level, but it's still a high level of performance to be able to communicate. And maybe for you, how did you pivot from being able to swim really fast, being a great sprinter, to being able to translate that or get to that same level for your talk?
I think a couple of things. One is definitely, as you're preparing for that talk, just writing out your script. I think one of the key things is just to be completely honest, because a lot of times people, when they're writing something, you're thinking about the audience, saying, okay, what do they want to hear? And sometimes it's almost like you're talk. You have to understand that this is your journey, this is your talk, and you're there to share your experiences with the people around you. So you don't necessarily have to put it in such a way where you're telling people what they want to hear. They're there to hear what you have to say. So I think it's important to dig deep and just be honest about your experiences. There are definitely going to be ups and downs, and some positives, some negatives. And I think it's important to share both, because that really gives the wholesome picture of your background and of your experiences and where you're coming from. And sometimes, the not so nice parts is what will motivate and inspire people. Sometimes it's the positive aspects that, inspire people. So I think the real key for me was to be honest and just sit down and, just dig down deep and write it all out. Everything that I was feeling, everything that I was thinking. And then, because it is a time crunch and you have just a limited amount of time. So then you can, you take out some aspects just to, give a concise picture of what that journey looks like. At least that's how it was for me. And I think when you're honest, that honesty shows. And when you're talking about your own journey, especially when it comes to preparation for the talk, then, you're not necessarily memorizing things. You're just going back and reliving your own moments. And I think that's a lot easier to talk about than just having a script which is memorized. And especially if that's something you've never done before, then that can be really daunting to just know that I have to memorize, 20 minutes worth of material. But if it's your story, it's easier to talk, because then that becomes almost like a conversation. And when you talk, it's like a conversation, then the audience also engages with you better and understands, and is more, the conversation becomes more immersive for everyone involved.
Well, great. Well, as promised, I want to find out about how you got into anti-doping science and tell us a little bit about maybe some projects or programs that you have right now, because that's actually linked to this whole competition piece, because it flies in the face of the purity of athletics and, human performance and everything. So how did you get involved, and what are you up to in there right now?
So my background, even as I was competing, was my education was in the biosciences, and that was something that I was really passionate about as well. And so throughout the 15 years of my sporting career, I was able to juggle and manage both the academics and the athletics piece of it. And so once I did decide to stop competitive swimming, I wanted to pursue a career in anti-doping science, just because it allowed me to combine both those passions of sport as well as biosciences. And I think I was able to do that because I had experiences in both those fields. And what it allowed me to do was, give back to the sporting community and just do my bit to make sure that, sport is clean across the world, and that, every athlete is given a fair chance at that starting line. And, everyone's there, and the winners are eventually the ones that, have worked the hardest or put in the most amount of effort. And I think that is something that is very, very important to me. Growing up as an athlete, I was tested a bunch of times, and, I know what that's like. I know what the system is like. And I think it's important to have every athlete in the world who's worked so hard to come up to that starting line, just at the back of their mind, know that, everyone's on the same playing field. And also from a health perspective, I think it's very important to spread that message of anti-doping in sports. And that's how I got to that field. And I've been extremely fortunate, because just a handful of Olympians in the world are able to do the research and science side of anti-doping in sports. So I've been extremely fortunate, very grateful, very thankful, and I thoroughly enjoyed that journey as well.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Shikha Tandon. Her talk is called "Is Passion a Choice?" And we're going to pivot over to you for just a couple minutes, Talk Universe, because we're about to go into the Blitz round. And it's time for the Blitz round with Shikha Tandon. I'm going to ask Shikha a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent talk. Shikha, are you ready?
Yes, ready.
All right. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited to speak.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
I think I want to say blender. I think I improvise a little bit, but for the most part, given the time constraints of the talk, I think it's important to memorize and just, even if not word to word, but just have a structure in place and memorize that structure.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
I think putting myself back in the moment of especially the aspects of the talk that I was talking about, because when for example, if I'm talking about when I was an 8-year-old and narrating a story or an incident, I think just going back in that moment and then just talking about it like a conversation, I think that helps you be a little less nervous and also explain and narrate the experience in the best way possible that can engage with the audience.
What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
So I was the opening speaker for that event, and everything was going fine up until the day before. We had rehearsals, and everything was great from a technology standpoint. And then the morning of, for whatever reason, they had technical glitches, and all the mics stopped working. So we had a 2-hour delay. And so you have this
2-hour delay.
Yeah, so, and it ended up being a 2-hour delay. And, obviously we didn't know that it was going to be that long. So I'm sitting there backstage thinking, okay, we're going to start in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then you obviously have the audience that's waiting there, to get the day started because they've invested their time as well. And so finally, when we did get started, I think everyone was pretty happy. And also, I think the expectation was a little higher than otherwise because now it's the opening act. And also, you've had people waiting 2 hours just to hear you. So that was unexpected.
What's your advice? What's your advice to openers?
I think just to understand that you are the one kicking off the day. And I think in the beginning, half of the day is when everyone in the audience is most excited and, they haven't yet had their lunch break and they don't necessarily need their coffee just yet. So to capitalize on that and just keep it engaging and also know that, if you're able to keep that audience engaged, that benefits the speakers coming after you. And I think that's an important thing to do for especially the opening speaker.
We've been enjoying the Blitz round with Shikha Tandon. Her talk, again, is called Is Passion a Choice? You can watch her talk over at BeTheTalk.com. In our show notes page, we'll have a link right there. You can always type it into YouTube as well if you like to type. You can also check out her LinkedIn page. We will have a link to Shikha's LinkedIn page as well. And we'll be right back with Shikha Tandon's final word of advice. And we're back with Shikha Tandon. It is time for the final word of advice. What is it?
Be concise, be honest, be willing to share every aspect. You don't have to only focus on the positives. And I think that shows in your talk, and that will resonate a lot more with people than if you're just, saying the things that they want to hear or that they've heard before.
Shikha Tandon, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh my gosh. So where are you based out of?
I'm in San Francisco.
You're in San Francisco. Oh, so that's why the internet connection is so wonderful.
I know.
You're in the most wired
right?
place on the planet there, which is great. Oh my word. I was in Mumbai last December and I've been to, and then went to Delhi after that and have cousins on my wife's side in India. So
what was the trip like?
It was kind of a heavy trip. I'm going to bring Leta back up here. We'll have a little conversation. Celina has stepped away, so we're going to just chit chat a little bit till I see Celina back here. But yeah, I was actually on a humanitarian mission with my wife, who is in healthcare. So we were actually doing some work in the red light district of Mumbai last December. So that's where I was having flashbacks from Leta's talk about where is your mother? Because I'm seeing these children all over the place, and your heart goes out, and then you're like, what can I do? And and you're doing all you can do. In my case, that's not very much. I'm not very useful to people in the red light district. I can motivate. I can be a nice motivational speaker for all the health workers in the red light district, all the volunteer humanitarians. I can motivate them and pump them up, but I don't know that I can, because I don't know that I have the substance to really to do that. I could try to be real motivating. So those are kind of the mixed feelings that a woke Westerner has, at least on their second or third trip. And before that, I've been off the grid again with my wife in Africa, off the grid, doing medical clinics and all of those kinds of things, actually with my brother, who's also in healthcare. And so I kind of knew a little bit what to expect, but it's always, it's always an intense experience. So yeah, that's where I was.
Yeah. And I mean, even for people that live there, I mean, you, like you said, intense experience, because sometimes you're just like shielded off from everything. And so, just because you live in a city, you live in that country, you hear about it, know about it. But it's when you actually go ahead and see it, and that's when it hits you, and that's when you realize that you're just so much like fortunate compared to someone else, and that's what kind of urges you to do your little bit in helping them out.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that I was in Arizona doing some church service, and I'm fluent in sign language, and I was going in and working with these people that had dirt floors. And very meager, plumbing didn't seem like it was really working. In Arizona. So,
wow.
And it just was like, how is this happening in this country? And they did not know that because their children were born in America that they could go to school. So they were keeping their children, hiding them, because they were afraid they'd be sent out of the country. And it's like, that's why you come to America, is because you get a free education. And that just blew my mind. Arizona.
Well, and that digs up all kinds of more thorny and complex political issues that we're all sorting out right now, and we're trying to be compassionate. We're trying to be, intelligent and a little bit fiscally aware, and it's not an easy balance for sure. My gosh, a church service in Arizona with no floor.
Wow.
My gosh. Well, powerful stuff. And the thing with me, whenever you do some of these trips, it's like the thing that I always misunderstood. It's like, well, if the church group, goes down to Mexico or wherever they're going, it's like, do you really need to, stay at the 4-star hotel? And, and that was kind of the judgment that I would always kind of think in the back of my mind. But then it's like, you go to a place, it's like, if you don't stay at a nice place where you can actually maybe get some quiet rest, and actually get some good restful sleep, you're not going to be very good for people, and you're going to be a major drag and morale killer on your team. So there's all kinds of good reasons to actually do that.
Clean water becomes an issue.
Clean water. Yeah. Like my wife is like, shut your mouth. Don't drink the shower water. Keep your eyes closed. And I'm like, I'm trying to remember. Don't swallow. Don't use bottled water for the toothpaste and all of that stuff. And I'm always forgetting one or two of those things. My gosh. So Celina, I'm looking at the green room here. Celina, come back. Celina has stepped away. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to and then no Celina at all. Well, I didn't mean that. Let's come back. Here she's coming back. There she is. She's back.
Perseverance.
I know.
Yeah. Here she is. She's coming back. All right.
Nice.
Good deal. Celina, welcome back.
I've been here the whole time. You couldn't see me?
You didn't hear me? I've been hollering for you.
I was like, I'm here, but it seemed like nobody could hear me.
Oh, that's fun. No, I saw a frozen screen again, and you had stepped away. So I saw frozen screen in the green room. I was just being polite.
No. Oh, no.
But you're back. Thank you
I'm
for doing that.
I didn't know you didn't see me, so I was like,
No,
I'm just
it's all
like,
good.
waiting for my turn.
It's all good. So I'm going to walk all three of you back to the green room. I'm going to bring Celina back on my right because I'm weird and fickle about that. Shikha, thank you so very much. Congratulations, and keep me posted with all the amazing work that you're doing. One of my Kevin Broussard is one of my talk alumni. He was one of my earlier people, I think, in the first 100. He is a Paralympian, and he's in Colorado Springs, and he's a wrestler, and he's gearing up for our next Olympics. So if you'll remind me, and if you want to connect with him, what I love doing is just try to pair like wine tasting. Like I've always got other people, who are kind of similarly focused. And one of the things that I love doing, I love this talk show format where we can all kind of talk and connect, but I'd love to connect you with other people that have been on that are in a really similar domain. So if you'd like to be connected, just remind me, because I'm doing all these interviews and uploads and re-uploads today, but love to do that. And
that would be great. That would be great. Just happy to meet new people and talk to new people. And sometimes if they're not even in the same field, like, you learn something new from everyone. So I think
absolutely.
That's I'm actually looking forward to be part of that alumni group on the
Oh
Facebook,
yeah, and please remind me of that too, because so many people have checked that, and then it's like, it's so much work to do that. So please pester me, and then I'll let you in. I'm the opposite of everybody else. It's like, hey, I just added you to my, your 492nd Facebook.
How much pestering are we supposed to do?
Can you get in?
Do a Leta level of pestering. If I don't get around to it, just go to Leta and ask for advice. Leta is great. Leta is awesome.
I put something on my to-do list and it gets done.
It gets done. Awesome. All right. Shikha, thank you so much. Leta, thank you so much. And Celina, see, you're on my left now. I've got to be on the left, so I'm going to walk you back here, and then we're going to bring you on. And you will be on the right now. There you are. She's back on the right. I love it. Excellent. Now, if you will tilt your laptop towards me so that you kind of grow a little bit, because we talk about like Me Too and all these other things on Be the Talk. I don't ever want to be like domineering and sitting way higher than especially the female guest or any of my guests for that matter.
So how do I be at the same height as you?
Yeah, so I've got just a little bit. You're about halfway up. Like if I'm matching you, I'm like down to here. I look like an Oompa Loompa from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory right now. I don't know if that's politically correct or not, but I mean that's kind of what we look like. So we're gonna raise it up here a little bit. If you could go a little bit taller, whatever you're doing, there you go. And just go up all the way.
Is this wait,
you just regress. There you go. There you go. Okay. That's great. And then if you lean back, you shrink. So just be aware of that too. So just try to stay, keep your back straight. Don't be slinking down on me. All right.
And then are we at the same level? Okay.
That works.
Equal face size.
Yeah, it's all right. I had somebody earlier who was like this, and it's it is what it is. It is what it is. So but the optics look good. The optics are great now, so we're all good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we're all good. All right, Celina. All right, Celina Lee is a career coach, podcast host, writer, and lawyer. Celina is passionate about helping people to pursue their dreams and live a life doing what they love. After having worked in finance, law, and technology, she now coaches many professionals on their career development and empowers them to create happy and fulfilling careers. It's celinalee.co. And then I see /podcast for the podcast, or just .co for the website, correct?
That's correct.
The talk is called Bilingual Bicultural.
That's right.
Any questions for me before we go live?
No, I think we're okay. I wasn't actually prepared for the video interview, but I thought it was going to be audio, but that's okay.
Here we are. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, Celina, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Celina Lee. Celina, are you ready to talk?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me on the show.
Celina Lee is a career coach, podcast host, writer, and lawyer. And Celina is passionate about helping people to pursue their dreams and live a life doing what they love. After having worked in finance, law, and technology, Celina now coaches many professionals on their career development and empowers them to create happy, fulfilling careers. Celina Lee, welcome to the talk.
Thank you for having me.
Your talk is called Bilingual Bicultural. And so I love your talk because you delve into what I hear a lot about the thing that was so painful in our childhoods, being the odd kid out, being the different one, or having some kind of a hindrance or disability or whatever it might be. They persist, they overcome, and that becomes their unique niche in the world. And so you fellow podcast host, you interviewed a whole bunch of bicultural people for your book, and you compiled all of that stuff into a great book to help other people understand some of the secret skills of how to have a rewarding career. So please, Celina, take us behind the talk.
Yeah, so my talk is titled Bilingual and Bicultural. And it was actually, I remember when I was, I got invited to speak and I was like, what would I talk about? And I was at first a little bit hesitant to talk about my experience because it was very personal. And I've never really spoken about it in public, certainly not at the TEDx stage. And it was the first time I was actually talking about it in public, and I did it at a big stage. So I was born in California, but my family moved to Korea when I was 3. And we moved back to Southern California when I was in 7th grade. And, when you're growing up as a kid, everyone has like sort of their identity. For some people, it's like being good sports or being good in music, or for some people, it's being beautiful or whatever it is. And for me, that was, doing well in school academically. And when I came back to Southern California, I didn't speak a word of English because, I went to a local school in Korea. And so it was really tough. Like 7th grade is just an awkward and terrible age for everybody. I didn't know it at the time that it was bad for everyone. I thought it was just bad for me. But
it's bad for everyone.
Right? And on top of that, if you look different, you don't speak the language, you dress differently, and then it's just really bad. So, I got bullied all the time, and people would say really mean things to me. And of course, I didn't do well in school because I didn't know the language, right? So I felt like my identity was gone. I no longer was who I thought I was. And it was just a really, really difficult time for me. And I think back then there wasn't really an awareness what bullying is. And there's always that kid in school who gets made fun of all the time, and that was me. So
you were all the way at the bottom of the totem pole. There's a pecking order. There's a totem pole there, and it's really bad when you're almost the lowest, which is where I was. I could beat one kid in arm wrestling in my grade in rural Pennsylvania, and that was what we use feats of strength to measure this kind of. That was what was valued, but you didn't even speak English, so you're all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, and then back then there wasn't really an appreciation for being bilingual and bicultural, and a lot of other parents and immigrant families, what they did was, you need to not speak English at home. You have to completely assimilate and be American. That was the only way to succeed here. Even though I was like, struggling to learn English, my parents had a completely different philosophy, and they said, you're going to eventually figure out this English thing and you're going to be fine. They had that belief in me, but they also made sure that I kept up with my Korean language and also the Korean culture. And they still made me read a lot of books in Korean and read a lot of newspapers in Korean, watch Korean TV, and had me go back to visit Korea often. And as annoying as it was, now that I look back, it was one of the greatest blessings and assets in my life. So I, grew up to become bilingual, bicultural. And after having worked as an investment banker and then as a corporate lawyer at a big law firm in New York City, I thought about what it is that I really want to do with my life. And one of my childhood dream, actually, very first childhood dream was I wanted a book with my name on it. And I ended up writing and publishing a book in Korean, even though I only went to the 6th grade of elementary school education in Korea. And my mom thought I thought it was absolutely crazy. And she's like, you're never going to write it. It's never going to get published. She said a lot of mean things to me. But then I did finish it. And it was probably the hardest things I've ever done. I was just so curious about how do other people figure their life out, because I felt like I certainly worked really hard to do the things that I thought I was supposed to go do, like go to good school, get a good job. And then somehow I was led to believe that you're going to end up being happy and successful. And how is it possible that I did everything right, everything I was supposed to do, and then I was incredibly unfulfilled in my job? So then I was like, I felt like I was starting from scratch, and I was like, how do other people figure this out? So I interviewed 9 Korean Americans, 9 different industries about how they achieved their dreams. And then I dedicated the last chapter of the book for the readers to write their own dreams in it. And then it got published. And after that, so many people sent me their dreams. So I started this community called Give One Dream, which now actually has grown into a global movement and really inspires so many people around the world to achieve their dreams. So I do different campaigns and initiatives and programs and events and things like that. And I talked about this experience at my TEDx talk because it was, even though it was very personal, I thought maybe I need to share because there may be other people who may be going through this experience. So I ended up, getting published, and then it did really well. And yeah, so basically the story is, even though when I was growing up, being bilingual and bicultural, being able to speak Korean wasn't something that I was necessarily proud of. And it was something that actually brought me an incredible amount of pain. But now that I'm older, I am not only able to, I was not only able to achieve one of my childhood dreams of writing a book in Korean because I kept up with my Korean. I think language also is not just a method of communication, but it also makes you, it also impacts how you think. So because I've grown up in 2 different cultures, know how to speak 2 different languages fluently, that gives me appreciations for people's different ways of thinking and diversity and different cultures. So, I've constantly moved around and traveled to so many different places all around the world. And it's very interesting, like looking back, like, wow, that was an amazing asset that I had, which I had no idea, at the time when I was young.
So I'd love to get your take, Celina, with your unique heritage and background on this idea. I'm hearing it called work-life harmony instead of balance, because balance is a myth, as we all know. So right. Even that work-life harmony, and I know that that Eastern cultures have just out of necessity. I want to be as generous as I can be. They have assimilated very, very well. They've worked very, very hard. I'm thinking World War II and that era, and then the last 70 years since then, some of the most prosperous nations on earth, some of the hardest working. I remember as a kid when I was in grade school, and I'm thinking about, the kids in Korea, the kids in Japan, the kids in China are in school like 18 hours a day. And they're just, that was kind of, beat over our heads a lot. And you're the textbook model kind of product of that, because you jump through all the hoops. And yet, here's my point. It's not fulfilling. You had to do other things. You had a crisis as an adult, and you had to realign, rebalance, reharmonize yourself. So I'd love to hear your take on that. Having ticked off all the boxes, having become a attorney, practicing attorney, New York City for a corporate, doing all of those things, making everybody else in your life happy except for Celina. How did you get past that? Yeah,
and I think there's certainly an added pressure if you come from a family of immigrant and immigrant community. There's an emphasis on, work ethics and just, working really, really, really hard to do the best that you can, and whether that's going to good school, getting good jobs. So I was certainly led to believe that that is the way that I needed to live. And frankly, nobody really told me growing up that, you know, you really have to like learn about yourself, like who you are, what you want to be, you know, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, and why is that, and what is it that you want to do in this life. And I just did not was aware of any of that. Like nobody told me that. And how come nobody teaches that, you know? So I kind of focused on the short-term goals of like, you know, when you're in high school, try to go to the best college you can, which I did, and then get the best job, and then, you know, go to law school and then get the best law firm job, whatever. And then when I was done with all of that, I was like, oh, finally I'm here. I am in the city of my dreams, which is New York City, and working at this very big law firm, you know, making a lot of money for my age at the time, and living, you know, in this sort of a fancy apartment, whatever it was. And then I was like, oh, but I'm so not happy and not fulfilled. And how is it that I could do everything right, but for it to still turn out right? Okay, right? So then at that point, I was just like desperate. I was like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to figure my life out, because I really do not see myself wanting to be here 30 years later. So for the first time in my life, I gave myself permission to do the things that brings me joy, even if it wasn't going to, you know, boost my resume to get the next job or to get into better school. So I just started saying yes to just random things. And, you know, I think we are led to believe like, oh, you have to find your passion and follow that. I don't believe that. Not many people have a burning passion that's screaming at them all the time. You know, I think there's some people who know from an early age, you know, who know what they want to do with their life. And these are like child prodigies in music and sports. But for the rest of us, including myself, you know, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and living a life that is full of joy and meaning, it's a lifelong struggle. It's a lifelong journey. So I just started to say yes to different things. And I was invited to interview for a small talk show, and then they asked me if I wanted to host it. And then I realized, oh wow, I really love listening to people's stories and sharing them. So then,
it is fun, isn't it?
So much fun, yeah. So
yeah, I like that too.
And that led to me writing a book. It was a book about interviewing people, right? So like, how did other people who are incredibly successful figure out what they want to do with their life? How did they achieve their dreams? And then that led to the community I built called Give on Dream. And then now I work as a career coach, trying to help people, you know, really figure their life out and move their career in a direction that is right for them. And then I also have a podcast. It's called Live Your Dream with Celina Lee. And I interview people who have achieved incredible amount of success in different industries, and just really honest conversations about how did you figure it out, and how did you have the courage, and, you know, describe your moments of failure. What did you learn from it? So it's basically a really honest conversation about people who have achieved incredible things. And I think it's so fun for me that I can't believe I get to do this, you know?
Yeah, it's wonderful. So I just one last little segment before we pivot over to the Blitz round. I'm wondering, do you consider yourself first generation American or immigrant or born to first? I mean, you kind of straddle both. How do you see yourself?
Yeah, you know, I was born here, so obviously I'm a U.S. citizen. But then I was brought to Korea when I was very young, and then I grew up there until I was, you know, maybe 12 or 13 years old. So I'm I don't know exactly how I would describe myself, but I'm perfectly bilingual, bicultural. I can function in Korean society as a Korean person. I can be here as an American. So I wouldn't necessarily define myself as one, but I do consider myself as Korean American, maybe 1.5. I'm like right in
yeah, 1.5. I like that. Well, that's why I asked the question, because you're not in either category. You know, and I'm not. It's not that it's a binary. I just know that there's from friends that I've had. You know, I'm aware of kind of the first generation thing and the conflict with parents, and, you know, the parents that don't know what it's like to grow up in America and have friends and hang out and go to the mall, and, you know, all of those little things. My question that I'm kind of setting up, it's taken me a while to set up the question, but we're talking about work-life harmony, and we're talking about your journey, how difficult that was, even though you hit all of the targets that other people, including perhaps yourself, just being in other cultures, had laid out, thinking that you would be happy. My question to you is now this: what could first generation people do? I mean, I'm wondering what's going to happen with the second generation. First generation people have the advantage, the curse and the advantage of having gone through the real culture shock and being the bridge. What do you think that first generation parents can best serve their second generation children? Did that make sense as a question? And she's frozen. Either that was a really bad question, everybody, or she is frozen. I hope she's frozen. Hey, everybody in a green room, was that a horrible question? I hope not. Wave at me. Let me know you're there. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Leta. Thank you, Shikha. Oh, my gosh. I did spend too long setting that thing up. I'm going to bring you up for moral support. Oh, we just dropped her. She just left. Oh, here she is. She's in the green room again. Okay, we're gonna. Yeah. Okay. Let's bring her back. Celina, you had me hanging. Oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry. I didn't. I was talking, and then all of a sudden you said I was frozen. I was like, oh no, I can hear you. I can see you fine. So I'm sorry about
it took me like 18 minutes to set up that question, which I thought like I'm going to win like some kind of podcast Academy Award for what I feel is the most brilliant question ever. And you froze, or you're just giving me the silent treatment, which would be even worse.
No, I love that question. I love that question.
Okay, this is why I have Lester, the talk ninja, who is editing all these things. So if you heard the question, I didn't hear any response. So just go into it.
Okay. So yeah, that's a great question. I actually have a personal story about that. So when I was trying to write my book and get it published in Korea, a lot of people said it would be impossible. And especially my mom thought it was the worst idea ever. And she, she said, you're not going to be able to write a book in Korean. Are you kidding me? You graduate elementary school. You're never going to be able to do it. And plus, no one's going to read it. You're never going to get published. Like, forget about it, So then I got into a lot of fights with my mom. And I thought, you are my mother. And even if everybody laughs at my dream, you should be supportive. But she really was not. So I didn't let that stop me, and it did get published. It got actually published by one of the best publishers in the country.
Traditionally really, really well. Published. That's amazing. That's amazing. Traditionally published in Korean. Actually, I have it right here. Yeah, show it. There we go.
I have it here. It's probably the best way to describe it would be to it's live your dream. Basically, interview people who have pursued their dreams. And, it's traditionally published. It was actually published by one of the best publishers in the country. And the way how that happened was also a lot of stars aligned. I don't think we have time to talk about that. But basically, I've learned that if you really want to do something, there are ways to go about doing that. And stars align. When you really, really want something so bad, then you're going to do whatever it takes to figure it out. So anyway, so the book got published, and I was doing a lot of press interviews. All of a sudden, I became this person who was like doing media interviews, and I was giving lots of talks. And then my mom started to brag to her friends, and then I told her, "You don't even have any bragging rights. You weren't supportive of my dream, And
then so you defrocked your mother of the bragging rights.
Yeah, and then she still bragged, and so one day I asked her, and I said, why were you so against it? And for the first time in her life, she apologized. She said, I'm sorry. I really didn't think you could do it. And my mom...
She almost need to apologize for that apology. That's horrible.
Yeah, like she's a very proud mom. She'll never admit anything she did wrong. A lot of moms are like that. And she said that I really thought you would fail. So I was trying to protect you from getting hurt. And that's when I learned parents actually don't want the best for us, because to be the best that we can be, we have to be able to take a risk in whatever that is. It could be in career or not, it's just personally. But a lot of parents, from their perspective, from where they grew up, if they think what you're about to, venture into has a high risk of failure, they don't want to see you fail and get hurt. So they will do whatever it takes to discourage you from doing that, which is why I think a lot of parents, especially in immigrant families, first generation, they want their kids to be their lawyer, doctor, or engineer, or finance, or one of those things, right? Like secure, stable job. But what I would want the parents or the first generation to think about is the world that they grew up in is not the same as the world that the new generation is growing up in. So you cannot give or force advice based on everything that you've been through. It's a different world. And I think a lot of times when, like for example, like my mom or people who said I can't do something, it is oftentimes that they're projecting their own insecurities onto them. But we don't even know, they don't know us. So they actually cannot know what we're capable of. We don't even know what we're capable until we try, right? So, yes, now that I'm looking back, I can see why my mom was so against it, because I had like 1,000 reasons as to why it was not going to be possible, because, I was not a famous person. Didn't have a blog, or I didn't have a following. Nobody was calling my name to publish my book. I had only one reason. It's because I wanted to do it, And if you really believe in the, seemingly impossible dream and you go about making that happen, like it is really possible. And that's what I learned from this experience.
We've been enjoying this interview with Celina Lee. Her talk is called Bilingual Bicultural. And you can find out a little bit more about Celina when we pivot over to the Blitz round. And I am hearing feedback. I'm hearing my own voice echoing back, and I don't know why, because you got your earbuds on and everything. That's crazy. I'm gonna do the pivot again because I don't hear myself anymore, which is great. We've been enjoying this conversation with Celina Lee. Her talk is called Bilingual Bicultural, and we're going to have a accelerated Blitz round in just a moment. And it's time for the Blitz round. I'm going to ask Celina just a couple of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of her talk. Celina, are you ready?
I am ready.
First question, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
I would say I'm a blender. Funny story with the TEDx talk, the Bilingual Bicultural, I actually felt very unprepared. So I actually had an hour of sleep the night before. And all night, I stayed up all night. I was trying to make slides. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. So wow. I actually did not have a script. And it was actually one of my very earliest talks. So one of the first talks I've given, and since then, this was in 2012, so it was many years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. There weren't many TEDx's in 2012. Yeah, exactly.
And then I've done many more talks after that. So this is my one of the early ones. But yeah, I felt very unprepared. I got very little sleep. Did not have it memorized. I just had some talking points, and I still look back. I'm like, oh, I could have done this better, that better. But I think because it was a talk given from my heart, it was more natural. But ever since then, if it's a really, really big stage and I have to do it in TED style or 18 minutes, then I try to memorize. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what's a tip, tool, or technique that you recommend?
I think it is really easy for people to get very anxious right before giving a talk. And one great advice that I've heard over and over again, whether that is writing a book or giving a talk or doing a podcast, whatever it is, to think about one person that really, really cares about your story and wants to learn from you, is very, very interested in hearing, your experiences, and imagine that person and prepare the talk for that person. And when you are speaking, it could be scary, especially for people who don't have a lot of experiences. There's usually at least a few people who are really, really listening. You can just see it in their eyes, and you just talk to them. And that will make you be able to connect to the audience more and then be less nervous.
Well, we've been enjoying the Blitz round with Celina Lee. Her talk, again, is called Bilingual Bicultural, and you can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We will have a link to her talk right there. You can also go to her website. We will have a link to that. It is celinalee.co, and it's Celina with a C.
That's right.
celinalee.co. And if you want the podcast, you can just put a /podcast on that and check out her amazing podcast as well. And we'll be right back in just a moment with Celina Lee's final word of advice. And we're back with the final word of advice from Celina Lee.
I think the best, I guess, advice that I always try to give myself or remind myself is when I'm experiencing failures or rejections, I tell myself it's an evidence, it's proof that I am actually challenging myself and, walking towards, trying towards, and making progress towards my dream. Because if I'm not trying for anything, there's no way I'd be rejected for anything, right? And that's what I kept telling myself when I was writing my book, and pretty much doing anything else after that. And just to get it started, just to act before you feel you're ready, because you're never going to feel 100% ready. And one of my favorite quote is by Rumi, and it says, "As you walk on the way appears."
Celina Lee, thank you so much for coming on the Talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much, Nathan.
All right. So I hesitated there because I was thinking of that movie clip from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he kind of sprays the stuff and he has to do the faith walk, and there's an invisible, optical illusion under his foot. And I'm like, don't just close the interview down, Nathan. Don't tell the story about Indiana Jones that, half the, millennial or younger probably never even seen the movie. So don't even go there, Nathan. Be a good interviewer. Shut it down. Actually, you were speaking to me because there are some things like even my affiliate program with Get Accepted that I'm about to launch, that I'm actually thinking of the best way to communicate that to those alumni, podcast guests that would be open to that program, helping more and more people get accepted. That first little hurdle, as long as that doesn't conflict with any existing coach, speaker coaching. Everybody I bring on to this is a speaker coach. So for a long time, I really hesitated. And then I'm like, well, let's help them just with that first little hurdle right there. That's the thing that I'm thinking about that I have totally been stalling, because it's so important to me to be able to roll that out and communicate that in an effective way. So I'm like, this is it.
Start doing it, and then you just figure it out and make it better as you go.
Yeah, I found with communication, it's just tough because you want to have something well articulated before you roll it out. But I hear you, and I've been sitting on some of this stuff too long. So man, how cool! What's that?
You can do it. You just
I can do it. Yes, I can do it. Absolutely. Yeah, well, this is awesome. Great. And any final words before we go completely offline? Because we're actually still broadcasting on Facebook.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. We're still on. So any final words from any of you?
Well, I think everyone was awesome.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to listen to more of your Beta Talks. This was really fun.
Oh, I hit the wrong. Sorry about that, Celina. Okay, we're going to take the frozen Shikha. Frozen Shikha is in the green room, and I hit the wrong button for Celina. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Shikha, what was your takeaway?
That I'm going to start writing that book.
Yay!
Excellent.
It's been something on my mind for a while, and like you said, it's just a question of getting started. And then hopefully, the creative juices flow and you can get that project going. So that's something I think I'm gonna attempt now.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How about you, Celina? What's your takeaway?
It was so much fun, and I didn't know what to expect from this group format, but I feel like I made new friends. So I hope to check out both of your talks and maybe keep in touch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why we do it this way. Yeah. It's a Thanksgiving miracle, everybody, at least in the United States. Take care. We're going to go offline, continue the discussion offline. Take care. And don't be afraid to share. Wiggle that finger, share, and impact the world.